This video contains content that may not be suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
Coronaviruses are a large family of viruses to which MERS-CoV belongs and may cause a range of illnesses to humans and animals, from the common cold to severe acute respiratory infection. The means of transmission is not yet fully understood, but some evidence indicate the following. Droplets from the patient during sneezing or coughing. Touching the patient's stuff or surfaces and objects contaminated with the virus. Direct contact with the infected person. The possibility of transmission from infected animals. The main signs and symptoms for corona infection are fever, cough, sore throat, shortness of breath, and in some cases, diarrhea and vomiting. Some cases with low immunity may develop renal or respiratory failure and even death. Patients are provided with the supportive treatment based on the patient's clinical condition, which might include antipyretics, fluids, oxygen, antibiotics, and others. Vaccine is in the research phase so far. For your protection, you should follow this advice. Wash your hands well and continually with water and soap or with other disinfectants, especially after coughing, sneezing, and using toilets. Use a handkerchief when coughing or sneezing and cover your mouth and nose with it. Then get rid of the handkerchief in a wastebasket. Try as much as possible to avoid touching the eyes, nose, and mouth. Put on face masks if you're sick, visiting sick patients, or when traveling to crowded places. Keep performing the other hygienic habits, such as balanced diet and physical activity, and sleep well. Wash vegetables and fruits well before consuming. Avoid as much as possible contact with infected people or using their personal belongings. Cook meat thoroughly and boil milk well, especially camel's one. People infected with diabetes, renal failure, chronic lung disease, and immunodeficiency should avoid contact with camels. Camel farm and slaughterhouse workers should have facial protection and frequent hand washing after touching animals, especially calves. Elderly patients with chronic diseases or those who are in close contact with camels are urged to visit the nearest health center immediately if they develop symptoms of acute respiratory infection.
That video is over 4 years old, so they already knew about the coronavirus, how deadly it is and how it can be transmitted. So why are they pretending as if they are oblivious to the coronavirus?
Scientists are identifying areas where new infectious diseases are most likely to emerge, where there are high risks of animal viruses passing to humans. One of those areas is in southern China. Hari Srinivasan brings us this report, which was produced in collaboration with Global Health Frontiers.
We're in Guilin in southern China, in one of the most beautiful parts of China with these amazing limestone hills and valleys and very scenic and picturesque.
Peter Daszak is the president of Eco Health Alliance, a nonprofit organization based in New York dedicated to protecting wildlife and public health from the emergence of disease.
The reason we're here is we're interested in the risk of new diseases emerging out of the wildlife trade in China, just like SARS did a few years ago, and just like ultimately HIV did in Africa 40-odd years ago. If we can get to the source of where they come from and reduce the risk, we could solve a huge problem and save millions of lives, rather than waiting for them to emerge and trying to mop it up afterwards.
At markets across China like this one, people come in daily to buy chickens and ducks.
It increases the risk of a pathogen like avian flu from spreading because you've got live chickens. If one of them's infected, it brings the virus in and it spreads to this flock over a few hours, and then those animals are taken to all distant parts of the region. Now, you could see this activity anywhere in the world. This is just like what happens in rural America and rural parts of Europe. But the difference is here we're in a hot zone for emerging diseases. This is a place where we've repeatedly seen outbreaks from poultry moving into people and spreading globally.
Natural habitats can also contribute to the spread of viruses.
We've got people fishing in the river, we've got people washing in the river, we know there's sewage coming directly from the houses into the river. There's not much wildlife here, but wild ducks will come down onto this river as well and mix in and migrate with the viruses and spread them backwards and forwards into this mix. It's a big mixing vessel for pathogens.
At a goose farm, Daszak and his team are looking for signs of avian flu.
The idea is that if we can catch the viruses they carry here, we can prevent them going to market and potentially spreading the disease. Okay, ready? We take swabs from the mouth and we take cloacal swabs. We put them in viral transport medium and then ship them on liquid nitrogen to the lab for testing. Avian flu is a virus that's common in many types of birds, but especially in poultry and waterfowl. It's a real killer, and some of these strains can also jump directly into people, so that's the problem.
Viruses that can cross over and infect humans have led to previous pandemics, including the most devastating in recorded world history, the 1918 flu, which killed more people than the First World War. More than 500 million infected worldwide, and as many as 100 million deaths over a 2-year period.
We're trying to say, where is the next avian flu going to come from? Can we see it before it becomes a pandemic problem? And stop it. There you go. I look at this a little bit like earthquakes. We know earthquakes can be devastating, we know they're pretty rare, and we know where they happen. So this is the same for pandemics. We know that this is a hotspot for pandemics. We know why it happens. But what we're not doing with pandemics that we are doing with earthquakes is reducing the damage initially. This has been going on for 5,000 years.
Yes. Working with EcoHealth Alliance in this part of China is Field Operations Manager Dr. Huijin Zhu, a biologist trained in the ecology of bats, which are known to be the source of the SARS virus.
It's really urgent to teach the people how to deal with the virus and just change our normal behavior to decrease the risk of the virus transfer.
This is a big tourist cave. Shall we go?
Daszak is concerned about a bat cave that's a popular tourist destination.
You've got the Rhinolophus horseshoe bat right here in this cave with all these tourists going through. Yeah. The bats here in this cave are the same bats that carry SARS virus. Bats live in the cave all day long because they're nocturnal. And when they're up there, they urinate and defecate right on top of the tourists that are walking through. And all you've got to do is be that one person to breathe in at the wrong time, and suddenly you've been infected with a virus that is not only potentially lethal to people, it could cause a future pandemic. We sent you the samples from these bats.
Daszak and his team have used mathematical models to try to understand what is driving these diseases.
We went back to every known example of emerging disease, HIV, Ebola, West Nile virus, SARS, plotted where it originated, and we said, what are the things that are going on in those places? The two big drivers are growing human populations, land use change, and high wildlife diversity.
Rapid global response to disease outbreaks is essential to stopping transmission and saving lives. But Daszak and his team of virus hunters believe that forecasting where outbreaks are most likely to occur is a critical part of a defensive strategy needed to prevent outbreaks before they emerge. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Hari Srinivasan.
Now that video was 3 years ago. And if 3 years ago these people knew about China being a hotbed for these different viruses, why didn't they do something about it? Why didn't China try at least to clean up their act?
People here are understandably very nervous, especially after the number of infected exploded over the weekend. The airport here in Wuhan has also started to do body temperature checks of people before they take flight. Not only that, when we landed here in Wuhan earlier today, we saw people, many of them wearing masks around the baggage carousel while we were waiting for our own bags. I took that video there and you can see people are nervous about the situation. Not only that, taking a look at what's happening in the United States, U.S. officials want to make sure that they are raising the defenses, and that is what they are doing there, because right now, as of now, there has not been a U.S. infection as of yet.
At 3 airports across the United States, the CDC is on guard. More than 100 officials in San Francisco, Los Angeles, and New York are screening incoming passengers from Wuhan, China, to detect the deadly coronavirus.
If it's issues that could affect others, it's maybe good choices to be cautious about it.
Since Friday, the number of known infections across Asia has more than quadrupled, with cases confirmed in China, Thailand, Japan, and now South Korea, which reported its first case this morning. Authorities say most of the cases link back to this now shuttered animal and seafood market in Wuhan. U.S. health officials are concerned this rapid spread could mimic the massive SARS outbreak of the early 2000s, which resulted in 774 deaths in 29 countries. But so far, it does not appear that this disease is easily transmittable between people. Health officials say this strain of the coronavirus has been spread to humans through exposure in handling of animals at the market.
If the virus turns out to be readily transmissible from human to human, then we'll have a much larger problem on our hands.
Dr. William Schaffner says public health authorities are already working on ways to fend off the epidemic.
There are laboratories around the world already working on really good diagnostic tests, and we've already started to work on a vaccine in the event that's necessary.
Now, I lived through the SARS epidemic in Beijing back in 2003, and at that time, there was massive criticism of the government, and that centered around transparency. The government at that time withheld a lot of information from the public about that massively growing epidemic. Now, we're going to see if this is actually going to be any lessons have been learned looking ahead, because the future of the people of China, and not only of Asia, but of the world, could be at stake here. Anthony?
Yeah, hopefully.
It is quite simple to me. And it is that people should give up their pagan ways. I understand that you are saying that you've been living this way for hundreds of years. But that doesn't mean that you've been living for hundreds of years right. You know, it's been recorded that the Moors had to come in and teach the Europeans up in Asia how to have corrals and to stop living with animals. And I've noticed I see some people that whether it's a domesticated or a wild animal, they always have to go hug it and kiss it. And these animals have diseases. You know, what else brought to my attention about this market, where they said the disease supposedly had started. I was thinking to myself, I said, okay, now what about the people that go out and catch these wild animals? You know, were they tested? Are they infected? What about the area where they went to get these animals? Is that particular area infected? I see that they said they have this cave that tourists like to go to, that where the bats live, and they frequently, you know, have droppings and pee that drop on the people. And all it takes is for you to breathe wrong in at the wrong time. And there it is, you have this coronavirus. I just can't understand why man won't let animals have their space and they choose theirs. They always have to go where animals are at, probing, looking around, kicking rocks, and fool around and kick around the wrong thing, which will be a plague upon the earth. I mean, China doesn't regulate anything. I mean, if they're going to have these different markets, they should have it where there's no cross-contamination going on in these facilities. Let the water, the fowls be in one area, the fish be in another, bats in another, whereas there's no cross-contamination. And why aren't these animals checked before they are brought in? And, you know, these Asians, it's the Asian New Year, so they go up there to China for the Asian New Year and they come back. And if, you know, I know all Chinese might not eat, Chinese might not eat bats, but I'm quite sure that more than the majority of Asians do eat bats because it's cultural. And if you just have to eat bats just that damn bad, why don't you have a bat farm where you can raise your own bats and make sure that they don't have these damn diseases? I just really feel as if you should stop eating bats altogether. I mean, I think that is very gross. It's like eating a rat, but I see y'all eat rats too. Not to get off subject, but I remember back in the 80s, early 80s, my family, we used to go fishing a lot. And fishing was good in Texas. But I noticed I started seeing a lot of Asian people coming up fishing, and they started getting these fishing boats, and they fish the damn ocean dry. Whatever comes into their nets, they are keeping. I was standing on the side of this Asian guy, and he was fishing everything that came on his line, he kept. Eels, baby fish, it doesn't matter. I mean, y'all eat any and everything. If it lives, it's edible. And I still have to blame America because as I showed you, I think it was on the second video, which was from 3 years ago, they knew about the coronavirus and how deadly it was. And they knew where it was coming from. But yet and still, because of your greed for money, you let people travel back and forth. The same thing, the people in China. They knew that this disease was going on, but because it was an Asian New Year and they didn't want to miss all that money, they tried to hush it up. You know, you have a lot of people saying that this coronavirus is real. You have some saying it's fake. But me, I am just going to be on the safe side. I'm going to take it like it's real. Like they say, just stay clean and most of all, stay away from sick people. I think it was around last year sometime that I went to the Isle of Capri up in Louisiana. And it was this old guy, white guy, standing next to me, to my left, and he was about to shoot the dice. But I was looking at him and I noticed he had this drip right on the tip of his nose. I just kept looking at it. I'm like, man, this guy is sick. And not thinking, the dice is coming to me next. Well, about 3 days later, my ass got so sick, man, I didn't know if I was going to make it. And the cold stayed with me for at least like 2 weeks. That damn cold hung with my ass. So I'm just saying to say this, hey man, you have to be very cautious about the people that are around you. You see somebody that's sick, don't take it for granted just as a regular cold, or you might not catch it because you just may catch it. And thank God for my black, strong body, I was able to overcome that bad cold. There is plenty of information out about this coronavirus. It's just new to us, well, new to some of us. And I say, hey man, just don't take no chances because they are still guessing. They really don't know how it's spread or whatever. And I noticed that sometimes when I go outside in that rain, I start to get the sniffles. So maybe it is in the rain. And if they meant this to be a distraction, it sure worked. Everyone has forgotten about the impeachment. No one is talking about Kobe Bryant or Gail or Oprah. No one is talking about the cases with these parents killing their children. Everyone is focused on the coronavirus. I've said that 2020 is going to be quite a year. We are only 4 months into it. And hey, sometimes when you start out bad, you end bad. And if that is the case, buckle up.